listening to We Saw the Devil, an investigative and conversational true crime podcast that deep dives into fascinating criminal cases that are solved, unsolved, or ongoing. From America's Lori Vallow to Germany's Armin Meiwes, we examine and discuss the world's most shocking cases. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to follow us online. Check us out at WeSawTheDevil.com and We Saw the Devil on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget, you can become part of the show by backing us on Patreon. Hello everyone, you're listening to We Saw the Devil. I'm Robin, and I'm here with the Moscow Murders Update episode. It's a relatively quick one. Because I don't want to fall too far behind in the current news cycle, which is so easy to do with active cases like these where there are so many constant press releases, conferences, and updates. But first, I hope that all of you had a wonderful holiday filled with friends, family, and love. And for those of you who dread this time of year or struggle with it for one reason or another, I see you, and everything is going to be okay. Those of you who have been listening for a while probably know my backstory a little bit, and I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of struggling finding my way this season as well. It's getting easier as time goes on, but I definitely decided to take a week off to practice self-care. You know, there's burnout, exhaustion, dreading the holidays, and then coming down with a hellacious cold, which you can probably still kind of hear right now. It can kind of kill the vibe sometimes. And I know that you guys have noticed the lack of editing or finesse in the last 2 episodes, and I'm really sorry, sincerely sorry about that. I didn't even post the last episode to YouTube because, quite frankly, the quality just was not there for me. That being said, I am now back. But before we get into the news update, you guys know I try not to be long-winded, but I do have to give just 2 really quick show updates. New year, new me, who dis, all that shit, right? First and foremost, the Patreon. In all honesty, I've let the Patreon go to hell. That's 100% on me. And it's been a huge source of personal anxiety and stress for me for a while now, in terms of, knowing I haven't been providing the full benefits and not having the time to send out some things. And that's why I'm suspending all billing on Patreon. If you're a current patron, you will not be billed for the next 3 months. If you are a previous patron who missed a sticker, a postcard, or content, please reach out to info@WeSawTheDevil.com ASAP so I can get that taken care of immediately. I'm literally going to be focusing on the Patreon this month in this new year. And point 2, which is also related to this, doing the show was losing its fun. I was not enjoying it even just 2 weeks ago. Getting sponsors is amazing until the burnout sets in. And that's why I'm going to be going and putting out just 1 episode per week to ensure that I can A, put out quality work, and then also be focused on the Patreon. From day one, I wanted to do this because of all of the people that I get to meet and discuss crime and psychology with, because of people, experts in the field who I get to connect with and interview. Let's have more of that, please. With sponsors came obligations and getting content out and then download requirements. And guys, I do this because I enjoy it. So again, 2 things. If you are a member of our Patreon, you are not going to be charged for the next 3 months. And then point 2, we're going to be doing 1 episode per week. If there is time for a little bonus episode, or if, say the Delphi or the Moscow or, something else crazy happens, I will absolutely do a really quick news update episode. But I really, really miss doing the narrative episodes and having the time to really put together a fully fleshed episode that you guys will enjoy. So I don't want to drag this on any longer. For those of you who are first-time listeners, please know that I usually don't go on diatribes in my intro, but since we're heading into the new year, I just wanted to touch on a few major changes. So let's head on in to Moscow. What's been happening in this case? And the very first thing I want to talk about is something that I am elated. I am ecstatic. I am so happy about this. Not to be happy or enjoy someone else's misfortune, but what is it Lizzo said? I know nothing about Lizzo, but I hear that song on TikTok all the time where it's and it's about damn time. It's about damn time. A TikToker has been hit with a lawsuit over making horrible, unfounded accusations. Ashley Gillard is a true crime TikToker who has made a lot of outlandish claims about this case as a whole. She does tarot card and psychic readings and talks about the murders. And side note on that, guys, the bane of my existence, like my trigger, as it were, is the true crime psychics that you'll find all over TikTok and YouTube. If you're into those, I'm sorry for you. They just made me take a really, really deep breath and find my happy place because I find it to be so freaking predatory. So this particular creature, Ashley Gillard, for whatever reason, started posting TikTok saying that Professor Rebecca Schofield, who is a history professor at the University of Idaho, was romantically linked to one of the victims and partnered with someone else to murder the four victims. She's published more than 20 videos on this topic. She has doxed this poor woman, posted personal information about Rebecca Schofield, and she's just making continuously wild claims. Never mind the fact that the Moscow police have already threatened to start prosecuting people who are making these insane claims and inserting themselves into the case and meddling with it. We have the first one who is actually being sued. Hit her with a lawsuit. And I could not be more here for it if I tried. Now, you might assume that Ashley Gillard became apologetic or maybe even took the videos down once she was hit with that lawsuit. Not the case. In fact, she's doubling down and saying that she's excited to see Professor Schofield in court. And this is another piece that I've discussed in, like the last 3 to 4 episodes is something I think that really attributed to my personal burnout is just how vile the true crime community as a whole can be at times when cases like these hit. Same thing with the Gabby Petito case, with the Moscow case. All it takes is a hashtag, y'all. I actually previously worked at Twitter as a BI, analytics person. My job was super boring. I basically collected analytics from a small French marketing firm who was basically being acquired by Twitter US, and as a French speaker as well, they hired me to basically come in and analyze data and assist with the BI, business intelligence, and the hashtags. I examined hashtags. It's absolutely incredible the amount of data that one single hashtag, when it catches fire, when it catches on, it can be millions of clicks. That impacts her career. That impacts everything about her. Speaking about Professor Schofield, that's all it takes. And when we live in a society that is constantly on social media, constantly plugged in, we have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the, others as well, it can ruin someone's life. So that's what Ashley Gillard did. She pointed out this random professor, said that she was certain that she was the killer, that she was romantically linked to one of the victims, and partnered with multiple people she eventually claimed to murder the students. So I, for one, am glad that this shit is being taken seriously. We saw it with the Lori Vallow case as well, right? Everyone in all of these different Facebook groups just got really spicy in terms of their quote-unquote research and sleuthing, and they were going to solve it. So they started doxing basically everyone. The Moscow murders case is actually probably, in most recent times, the worst I've ever seen of this. Like, the ex-boyfriend, a neighbor, the rideshare driver, everybody is getting doxed. Alexandra Duggan, a reporter, actually posted a tweet that said, people on Twitter accusing a man they have no idea about and then blaming Moscow's local bar for covering for him. This is a problem, y'all. To quote Chief Fry, quote, there's a lot of people who want to be involved on the internet. We are the official source of information. And if you recall, there's a bar there in Moscow where Maddie and Kaylee went previously. The owner of the Corner Club posted on Twitter that said, quote, love starting the day being called a piece of shit because I won't give some crazy lady a last name. She's, quote, watched all the TikToks and knows everything. Yo, the tip line is 208-883-7180. If you think you know something, call them. It's just so scary to see the mob mentality and the conspiracy theories that happen online. Remember the child sex trafficking and the pizza parlor bet a couple years ago? Supposedly Hillary Clinton did that. And a guy actually went there with a loaded gun, prepared to confront people about it. All it takes is just one unhinged person or someone going just 1 inch too far, and it could be another tragedy. So please don't do any of this. But bottom line, I'm very, very, very thrilled to see someone actually stand up to this bullshit and actually lay down a lawsuit. Other than that, the family of Jack DeCour spoke out via the New York Post. Also, if you recall, he was actually Haley's ex-boyfriend. And also, simultaneously as he did that, the police once again doubled down on him not being a suspect. Quote, detectives do not believe the male Kaylee and Madison attempted to contact numerous times on November 13th is involved in this crime. Jack and Kaylee dated for 5 years. And initially, right after the news of this hit, he was the prime suspect all across the world. I'm sure, obviously, as for law enforcement as well. Kind of checks all of those boxes, especially since they recently broke up. But his family put out a really nice statement. It was featured in the New York Post and basically just talked about how devastated they are. He has the dog, all of that. And it was really surprising. Can't say that I exactly expected them to speak out. Now, Kaylee Gonsalves' family did not make a statement or respond to that at all, which is actually very interesting and gives me hope, because it's been really interesting seeing initially, right, when this crime took place, everyone was like, oh my God, these poor grieving families. And then the more and more and more that Kaylee Gonsalves' father in particular spoke out on various networks, particularly Fox News, and just, how he didn't trust law enforcement, how law enforcement was a failure and trashing them. And he made some pretty harsh statements. So his new attorney that I've discussed in previous episodes apparently is telling him to kind of, hey, stay quiet, which honestly is probably the most respectful option, not only to law enforcement who is investigating, but also to the other victims' families as well. In other news, the driver of the rideshare spoke out. If you recall, Kaylee and Maddie were driven home. He actually reached out to the police. And this is really fascinating to me. He actually reached out to police. They didn't reach out to him. He drove them home that evening, not even probably 3 hours before they were murdered. And the police never reached out to him. He, again, had to reach out to them. He ended up giving them a Taco Bell receipt in order to clear his name, like proactively. And I try, especially in small town murders like these, to give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt and whatnot. And we're going to get into more of that in a moment. But I was appalled to see that they didn't even reach out to the people who knowingly had seen Maddie and Kaylee and Xana and Ethan immediately, at least. Also, in a previous episode, we talked about that white Hyundai Elantra. Police were sifting through more than 20,000 of them. Well, one was actually found in Eugene, Oregon last week, and the entire world exploded. Everyone was posting about it. They drove the corridor. They drove to Oregon. This is totally related to the Washington and Oregon murders from 15 and 20 years ago. Well, no, totally unrelated. Totally unrelated as a whole. However, that being said, Moscow police did put out yet another statement saying that they are, quote, confident that the occupant or occupants of the white Hyundai have information critical to this investigation. So there is still yet a white Hyundai that law enforcement is seeking. Bolo, be on the lookout. These people likely have critical information and were seen in the area the night of the murders. But we don't know who. We don't know who was in the car. And also news that I didn't really see dropping over the last week, Truth and Transparency, a YouTube channel, published 2 videos that they obtained via a Freedom of Information Act request that shows 2 noise complaint calls to 1122 King Road over the previous months up to a year prior to the murders. The first one was on September 1st, and in that one, officers knocked on the door for 10 minutes before 2 random guys answered the door. They told the officers that, hey, the owners, those responsible here, they aren't home. They went to another party. Apparently, at some point, they give Maddie's name, and apparently the police talked to her on the phone. I highly suggest you going over there. They are kind of lengthy, but you can get a really good feel of it. We can hear, those of us who have been to colleges where party scenes were pretty robust, know the party house setup, right? We know that people are in and out of it. It's usually not the cleanest. There's so many people, strangers in and out. It's just absolutely nuts. That apparently is what that house was. And like one of the videos, it's nighttime. The police knock on the windows and the doors for like 10 minutes. Finally, someone comes and it's just 2 random guys. Kaylee, Xana, Maddie, no one was home. None of them were there. Just a bunch of strange people in their home. In the second one, it was a daytime video. Obviously, other than it being incredibly sad in the second video where Kaylee actually comes to the door and talks with police and seeing her so alive and full of life and realizing that this person was brutally murdered and had their life cut short just a couple months after that chest cam footage was taken, it's horrifyingly sad. But it also made me realize just how much of a nightmare that scene must be to process. If you think of a regular apartment with, say, 2 roommates, right? Let's say if you've ever had one roommate, that's you and your friends who come over, all of that DNA, your roommate, any friends or family that they may have come over. But if you have a party, dozens of people. When you have a party house that has 6 people living in it, constantly with people in and out all day long, all night long, you're going to have an astonishing amount of DNA evidence that forensics, that unit, they have to sift through it. They have to figure that out. I cannot fathom how complex that has been. So I am trying to extend a little bit of grace to law enforcement in this case, considering the scene itself and everything that they're trying to sift through. I know that they have, I believe, like close to 50 warrants that they are waiting to, be signed off on, like as of last week and this week. The investigation is actually in full force. So, however, some of the missteps again with law enforcement of making statements and then walking them back so early on, the county prosecutor being so heavily involved and just so loud in the very beginning of this, and the police having to walk it back. And not only that, but the fact that they waited over a week from the murders to actually go, to businesses and whatnot on the different routes and say, hey, do you have any security footage? And not only that, but a gas station, remember the attendant used her nighttime slow time at work to actually start sifting through security footage on her own. The police didn't even, go out and ask for it. They just basically put out a couple statements asking, hey, if you have anything, let us know, but didn't do some of the legwork. My God, can you imagine being murdered? Let's say that you went out to dinner with a friend, you got an Uber, the Uber dropped you off at home, you were murdered 2 hours later, and the police didn't even check on the Uber driver. Didn't even, clear them off. Not saying this guy was an Uber driver, it wasn't. There's so many of these little missteps that are appalling. Ultimately, though, we don't know what's going on in this investigation. We have no idea. They very well could actually have a suspect and know exactly who did it. And they're not going to tell. Who are they going to tell the families? I mean, I've said it once and I said it again, and I know ruffled feathers here, but, the police, especially the FBI, they're under no obligation. None, zero obligation to the families whatsoever. Their entire goal is to basically identify and remove a threat from the public and then send it over to the legal system. But who are the police going to give updates on the case? The families? We've seen how even the smallest of updates, how the Gonzalez family, particularly Kaylee's father, has reacted to even the slightest bit of news, so all trust has gone there. And not only that, but it's important for the investigation. We have seen so many times where police have zeroed in on a suspect, but they say the exact opposite in the news publicly because they obviously don't want evidence to be destroyed, that person to catch on, that they're on the radar, anything like that. At the end of the day, we have no idea what is going on in this case. However, seeing the parties actively at the home and how many people there were and how none of them were even home during the party, it just brought me back to my own college experience and being in houses like that and just being like, wow, I can't imagine the hill that law enforcement has ahead of them, especially in a town that's had 2 murders in 20 years or something, or 30 years. I mean, it's insanity. And also don't forget that neighbors said that there were people there constantly. Another really interesting tidbit is that a former resident of the 1122 King Road home said that you can hear everything happening above you. Anonymously, he reached out to the media and did a written interview where he told them that you can hear everything that happens in the house. You can hear people go up the stairs in the middle of the night. You can hear people talking. You can hear people walking, coming indoors. He said that you could hear everything. The walls, the stairs, everything was paper thin, and that it would keep you up. So that's actually really fascinating insight into this, because I think a lot of people are wondering what the surviving 2 girls heard that evening. And I see people already speculating on this, either pointing the fingers and saying, well, that's because they were involved. And I'm like, not necessarily. And, this may not paint myself in the best light possible, but when I was a freshman, sophomore in college, I partied a lot. And I can remember countless times where I had probably too much to drink, came back to my dorm room, and then eventually my apartment, and went to sleep. And I'm pretty sure we could have a nuke hit whatever major city around me or my house, and I probably would have slept through it. Considering the personalities of these kids and, basically what their social media at least, and how heavily involved they were in the party scene and whatnot, it's not outside the realm of possibility that they just conked out and slept through whatever happened that evening. Just because the walls and everything's paper thin and you can hear, it doesn't mean that they were involved. So before the internet mafia starts on its bullshit again of trying to accuse other people again and ruin their lives, let's just think of all of the different angles here. Not everything leads to guilty. And those were just a quick few items, guys. I just really wanted to get a really quick update so I didn't miss too much in the news cycle for this case. But overall, I'm just really, really nervous in this case because we've all watched the first 48. We know the timeline. We know how important this investigation is. It's in the phase now where forensics, DNA, phone records, text records, a lot of stuff is coming back. I saw one FBI profiler talk about how this is kind of like the mega load. This is the most important phase of this investigation right now when you get the meat of the evidence back. So they're going through all of this, and I'm sure they're learning a lot every single day. Not even including what the 2,000 or 10,000 leads that they've already gotten, call-ins, and then they also have thousands of digital leads as well. So this is not a very small undertaking. And it makes me think immediately of the Delphi case. Don't forget, guys, the Delphi case, we did not realize that the would-be killer, in this case, Richard Allen, allegedly, left a bullet at the scene, that a bullet was found between the two girls' bodies. We had no idea, none. Even until after a month after he was arrested, like 2 months after he was arrested in that probable cause affidavit. That's how we realized. That's how police linked him to the case. That's the level of privacy. 5 years, no idea that even happened. That could very well happen in this case as well. I do not envy any of these investigators. My heart absolutely breaks for these family members. And it's the holidays, But those are the few key items that I just wanted to touch upon again before I got too far back in this case. But I want to know, what do you guys think? With all of this and what we know now, and it's all speculation, has anything changed your mind? Do you think it was a serial killer? Kids at the college are going to be going back to school here soon, which I'm sure is terrifying for many of them. For the family's sake, I hope it doesn't turn into a 5-year mystery like the Delphi murders with multiple podcasts and TV shows and the not knowing and then I also hope that a name that I haven't mentioned in quite a while is Suzanne Morphew. That case also deeply impacted me. And, if you recall, she vanished on May 10th of 2020 on Mother's Day. She supposedly went for a bike ride, never came home. Her husband, Barry Morphew, whom she had a very, very, very tumultuous, turbulent, violent, and abusive marriage with, was arrested. But he never even made it to trial because of the lack of evidence. And that case is also tragic beyond belief. But that's it for the Moscow murders, guys. The next episode will be when there's more information. I just wanted to make sure I covered this little time period. Next up is going to be, I'm going to tie up in the next probably 2 episodes, the Dark Side of Disney stuff, just getting into the good part of that. And then I'm going to circle with my Patreon to talk about what I should cover next. Thank you again for listening, guys. You've been listening to We Saw the Devil. I'm Robin. The website is wesawthedevil.com, where you can find us across all of social media, including our Patreon. Again, patrons, you will not be getting charged for the next 3 months. The billing has been suspended on that. And yeah, if any of you previous or current patrons have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. That's info@wesawthedevil.com. Love hearing from all of you, even if you just want to share theories. And in the show notes, you'll also see a link to our Discord. Please feel free to join the Discord. I would love to talk to all of you about your theories of what you think happened, or maybe even get a little insight. Like a couple of you have reached out because you live in Moscow. You know the area well. You've been to that house even inside of it. So don't be a stranger. Please feel free to reach out, and I will talk to you guys soon. Until next crime.